Today, Twitter lands both a new sort of CEO and Tucker Carlson in a week. Reminds us of something. Then, infallible Softbank is suddenly the falliblist. And CNN's Trump town hall fiasco? Who could possibly have seen that coming? I'm bombastic sidekick Bob Garfield with El Jefe, Steve Rosenbaum, and from various points on the eastern seaboard, this is Future Forward. Hey, Steve, what you got?
I got to say, I like bombastic sidekick because it has kind of a Bob sound at the big bombastic.
Yes, I am truly bombastic. There's no argument there.
This is going to be a fun pod. I have to confess, just to get this right out front at the beginning, I did in fact watch the Trump thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's the difference between
you and me.
I didn't mean to. I kind of convinced myself as it was coming on that the clips wouldn't give me the full scope of the rhythm of the thing, and I needed to see if he was going to light his hair on fire, which he did not. I'm trying to convince myself, and I will try and convince you in the second chapter of this pod that he actually did himself more harm than good, but it's going to take a little bit of there's going to be some aerobics involved. But
he did do himself more harm, more harm than good. I think that will your analysis will be borne out by future events. But CNN also did more harm than good, and that is repulsive. But we'll talk about it.
Let's start with Twitter. Mm-hmm. So let's do the CEO first. Musk gets credit for hiring a smart, high-profile, really strong Rolodex, well-regarded woman who people I know who know her think she's fantastic. And she did a panel with him a couple of weeks back and was already sounding a little bit like his boss, trying to kind of like coach him into not tweeting stupid shit at 3 a.m. So she knows what she's getting into. There's not going to be any surprise.
But
yeah, I don't know. I was hoping if I just left a big pregnant pause there, you'd jump in with something.
Permit
smart.
Me to assist. Yeah. But it's an insane move on her part. I presume a number of things. I presume because Comcast Universal is not itself. It's kind of a leaking ship, not necessarily sinking, but it's been leaking for 25 years, and it's got structural problems which cannot be repaired. I mean, its core businesses are all failing, except for data. That is to say, Wi-Fi. So, and I further assume that there's been so much tumult there lately that, notwithstanding her extraordinary relationships with advertisers, which is her main gig, that someone was going to have to, some heads were going to roll. And if this is utter speculation, no data whatsoever, but I suspect that she was on her way out anyway. Plus, I'm sure Musk promised her just gobs of money, and I also hope she gets a gigantic signing bonus, because if she took stock warrants, that would be the worst decision in personal finance history, because the Twitter stock ain't going up, it's going down. So I understand exactly why he brought her in, why she would take this job when she's not even really CEO, when he maintains control of content and platform. I mean, it's inconceivable to me, because all of her problems in fixing the broken advertising market at Twitter are related to everything he does and has done to destroy the platform. And if he's still in charge of that, she's not in charge of anything. And it's a fool's errand to think that she can restore confidence of advertisers and lure them back on the basis of her relationships to this absolute shit show that is Twitter. So I do not see any scenario in which this could end well for anybody.
I mean, I think if you're a big advertiser and you know her and you have her cell phone number, you will move a little bit of money back, A, because you have a relationship with her, and B, because you have someone who's going to answer the phone when you call and say, what the fuck?
That may be true, but it's equally true that on the week they hired her to be the CEO and to restore advertising relationships, they also promised a platform for Tucker Carlson, who's a fucking racist, misogynist Nazi, and that is sending. If there's ever mixed signals by this erratic nutbag Elon Musk, that's kind of definitive.
Yeah. So I think that the Tucker thing ends up not happening. First of all, Musk backpedaled. We don't have a deal. He doesn't have a deal with us. So there's that. He doesn't really need a deal. But let's just assume that Tucker tells Fox, "Go fuck yourself. I'm gonna take my act over to Twitter,"
in spite of his non-compete and
right. So then
and his
Fox,
lawsuit against Fox.
Right. So then Fox would be obviously within their rights to sue Musk and say, "Look, we have a non-compete with this guy, and you're breaking it." And if you're Fox, having just lost a lot of money, suing the richest man in the world is not a bad idea for what is kind of an open and shut, interference with employee relationship
tampering
case.
Tampering.
Yeah. So my gamble is that it was a Tucker play to kind of, say to Fox, "Let me out of the contract because I'm gonna go do something one way or another." I don't, and also I don't know how much time you spend on Twitter, but I mean, maybe just mention to me, if you would, Bob, in your media diet, which I know is diverse and healthy, how many shows do you watch on Twitter?
Zero.
Zero,
right? Because that's
right.
Up from zero.
Right. So you're asking the audience to find him on Twitter and then create an entirely new behavior called watching Twitter without flipping for half an hour while he rambles on. It is a living room screen experience, and maybe there's a way to get Twitter onto my flat screen, but for fuck's sake, I don't know what that is.
And by the way, the reason Twitter is Twitter, the reason is for TLDR, too long didn't read. People like to consume bites, and then if they are sufficiently compelled, they may, widen the search. I don't even look at videos of any kind of journalistic content. I don't. I seldom even listen to podcasts, to tell you the truth. I'd prefer to read. I do not. I go onto Twitter to scroll and doom scroll, to discover and become irate, just like any other flawed human. And I guess also look for fellow travelers. I do not go there to have to commit myself to 30 minutes or whatever of more content on the same subject. They don't match. What's wrong with this picture? It's like, I don't know, if Best Buy were to suddenly devote a section to
pastry,
to vinyl, to boutique vinyl turntables and something. No, nobody's going to go to Best Buy to get an immersive vinyl experience. And it's maybe not the best analogy, but it's passable.
I like pastry as my example.
Yeah,
let's go to Best Buy for pastry.
Okay, better still.
Yeah.
So I mean, every move a picture, as my now dead poker friends used to say when they made a bad play in cards. It's ironic, and that's what
Tucker,
Musk. Well, the whole lot of them, but
all of them.
Musk. Every strategic and tactical decision he makes is the wrong one. It's unbelievable.
All right, so we're going to give Linda the benefit of the doubt that she'll bring in some dollars, and she's lovely, and Musk will fade a little bit into the background, but in the end, she'll take her money and be. Hey, let's start a little betting pool. She lasts 3 months. She lasts 6 months. She lasts a year.
I don't know. There, if she has to forfeit her signing bonus for leaving before 2 years, and if she doesn't have a signing bonus, color me the most amazed man in the world.
No,
Because
she does.
okay, so it depends upon the terms of that, and so if she has to return the money if she fails to meet the strike date of 2 years from today or whatever it might be, 6 months, then that could have an impact. But it the move itself is not going to be transformative. It will fail, just like everything else he's done has failed.
And I mean, if you look at the way he's fiddled with the product, checkbox this, check marks that, you have to, threatening people, NPR, if you don't start tweeting, we're going to give your handle to somebody else. Like it's not Bush. It's worse than Bush League. It's kind of just psychotic. Like
yeah,
the threat.
it's
So
like that.
all right, so we don't.
Or you know what it is? I would say adolescent. I mean, like another important political figure of our time, whatever abilities and vision and skills he has as a technologist and business visionary, he's still a 12-year-old boy, and with no impulse control, and very, very toxic impulses, and that will lead him ultimately to failure. And it doesn't bespeak well of the future for Tesla either, or any of these other massive projects of his. So,
except the rocket ships, because there's not like a close number 2 in rocket ship land. He's kind of killing it in rocket ship land, which means the federal government is giving him boatloads of money, which is also sad.
Yeah.
All right, so we're done with Twitter. Good luck. We think Linda, fingers crossed that she can. Maybe he'll find a new hobby. Maybe that's it. Maybe he's going to go like, I don't know. Anyway,
I hope it's parkour.
Ooh, ouch. Let's move to CNN's decision. I want to break this up into 3 categories. Let's start with like how. Let's you and I use our powers of reading minds and figure out, how did the town hall thing happen? Like, who called who? And who negotiated the deal?
Well, look, I think it begins with John Malone, who has effective financial control of the fate of CNN and its new corporate owners. So we can start there. Then they hire people who are going to take as marching orders the will of the ownership class. And then you get to their rating situation, which is that nobody who is politically right will watch them. And from a business point of view, they think that is what's destroying the company. And they could never really compete with Fox, which, even when their audiences were occasionally essentially the same, the premium they paid on the per subscriber fees from cable operators, they didn't match. So they were getting clobbered by Fox. But the reason is simple. They were 2 different businesses. Fox was a propaganda business. They were heroin dealers. They got people hooked on the what's the word? The charge of hate, and they monetized it, right? Completely without any kind of journalistic or ethical values. The only thing they valued was the loyalty of their audience. That it's a very solid business model. They've made billions and billions and billions of dollars on it. It's just evil, but nonetheless, that's their business model. CNN always had designs on being a journalistic organization, and too late, but eventually in the Trump regime, they began covering Trump for what he was, which is a liar, a sociopath, a criminal, and all of the things that we know he is, which of course further damaged their audience and their trustworthiness, because people thought that they were biased. And this is so simple, Steve. Is the Weather Channel biased against tornadoes? Is To Catch a Predator biased against pedophiles? Are prosecutors biased against criminals? Yes, yes, but not biased in terms of intellectually dishonest. Biased in terms of the reason they exist is to go after these people. And journalists are in the business of going after liars and crooks as well. It is what journalists do. So to glibly call it bias, as the political right has been doing for 50 fucking years, uh, is only true within the like number 3 definition of bias in the dictionary. And of course they're predisposed to find sick pathologies, identify them, and call them what they are. And so CNN was damaged financially by belatedly but very, very powerfully doing its journalistic responsibility. But the new owner said, no, 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 no. We have to be impartial. We have to be fair. They were being fair. We have to be balanced. That's not balance.
All
if
right,
you want to talk about bias, it is to ignore your journalistic and idealistic principles for the sake of attracting audiences who don't care about the truth. So fuck them.
Excellent. You didn't answer the question, so I'll do it for you. So the phone rings. So CNN says, let's get Trump. Okay. Chris Lisk says, go do that. Now, there's no one to call. Maybe what's his name, his pseudo PR guy. But very quickly, Trump comes back with a series of demands. It says the only way I'll even consider it is if it's in New Hampshire, if the audience is only Republicans, you know, that they're the questions that,
MAGA Republicans.
Yeah. Well, they didn't say that out loud, but there were a couple of things we've since learned. You know, having been on my share of television productions, I can tell you, they went out to the audience and said, "Do you have a question for the president?" Which they called him, which made the hair stand up on the back of my head, not the former president. And they got a pile of questions, and then they vetted them, and then they reviewed them with the Trump team. Like there was no, like every single one of those questions, even the ones that started out looking like they were going to be a little bit adversarial, had a soft landing for him. But the thing we found out yesterday that I think is maybe the most shocking is the audience was told, you can applaud, but you can't boo.
Yeah.
I mean,
the fix was in from the start. And can I tell you what Chris Licht said to Justin? This was just a few days ago. Chris Licht, the boss at CNN, the nominal boss, explained it as follows. We knew it was going to be a challenging interview, and we knew it was going to be messy, and we knew it would be controversial. But
we made news.
Well, he didn't say that, but what he did say is if a conversation like that is going to take place, it had better be on CNN. The implication being that they don't want to cede that blockbuster moment to somebody else, but which struck me as being exactly the same answer I got from a top executive of Philip Morris a year ago or 2 years ago, when I asked her why Philip Morris, for all of its bluster about smokeless tobacco products and all this shit, is still selling cigarettes that claim the lives of 8 million people a year worldwide. That's a Holocaust plus per year worldwide. And her answer, and it's on tape, is God is my witness, look it up, is if we got out of the tobacco business,
someone else would be in it.
Someone else will be in it. We would have to cede that to our competition. Well, fuck you. I have the same response to Philip Morris and CNN, which says something in and of itself. Fuck you, because that is the definition of cynicism. I just fucking hate them.
Okay, so here's
bombastic sidekick Bob Garfield.
Here's the thing that surprised me about what he said, and here's what I think is the good news. He said, you know, it would have been not hard when he was questioned about January 6th or the election was rigged to simply say, you know what, that's in the rearview mirror. I'm not going to fight that battle. I disagree with the outcome, but I'm going to win the next election. And literally, like that would have been, there would have been no reason for him to relitigate the case he's making that 60 different courts have determined has no merit. And he's just, I mean, it's a clue about how undisciplined he is, that at the end of the day, he's going to relitigate, the Biden win forever.
Because that is the golden goose. Those are the rails for the money train. All of these grievances, however invented, are what keeps the money coming in. Even his convictions and indictments and being found liable keep the money train. There is no downside for him to keep stringing out the same lies. But, CNN had some options. One of them was every time he uttered a lie would be to put the lie logo on the screen with a URL to a fact-checking source. Not that anybody was going to go there, but to make the point that we have the documentation. Mr. President, another lie. Proceed. And then the nasty woman could have really been a nasty woman. But no, they decided to just let his statements speak for themselves and reveal the man. Well, we know the man. We know the man.
You know what I want? Somebody must have recorded the whole back channel audio that was in her IFB. It would be great to release. We could.
Yes.
It's like no, you got to stop. Because they were. By the way, have you ever had to, like, when you're on air and there's a thing in your ear with somebody yelling at you while you're trying to be coherent? It's really, really hard to do.
It is hard to do. It takes a shit ton of concentration. And, luckily I was in radio for the biggest part of my career. And I was able to, when I was before COVID, look in the control room and wave them off and say, shut up, I'm trying to concentrate, or go on to Talkback and say, okay, I got it. Just let me be.
Yeah. Because
it is extremely distracting.
So I think what came away from, so the good news is that we know exactly what Trump's playbook is. He's not going to reinvent himself. He's not going to be kinder and gentler. He's not going to say, I think there were, he's going to defend January 6th. He's going to say everyone was there being loving, whatever his crazy, everyone was there with love in their hearts, which
yeah.
That being said, though, I do think you couldn't have watched it and not thought about Biden and been like, maybe they will both determine neither of them wants to debate each other. Maybe that will be the outcome, because, it's just, he's so exhausting and so vicious. I'm not sure.
I would not dignify him with the debate if I were Biden. And what I would do instead is say so through every possible channel, constantly, beginning now. I truly don't understand why the Democratic Party waits, husbands its resources. It keeps its powder dry till 3 minutes before election day. When they could be doing what the right wing does, which is constantly feeding the goods. They have the goods. They've got the documentation. They've got the video. They've got the lists of arrests and prosecutions and lost court cases and won court cases. They've got it all. And that for whatever reason, they just they don't invest in the reality that they have to benefit them.
All right. I want to move on to the weirdness in venture finance that is baffling to me, and well, maybe not baffling, but the meltdown of Softbank, it is a meltdown, right? Yes.
Yeah, they have followed the tech sector, right down into the path of perdition. They were geniuses when they went long on some rather speculative investments, and it worked out very well for them until it didn't. And when the tech got hit hard across the board, naturally they're kind of like a stock index, except their stock indexes are liabilities on their balance sheet, and they had to start unloading assets in order just to have some cash flow. So,
but
you
32
risk.
billion in losses, like even for deep pocket investors, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, that's smart. And by the way, I think one of their investments weren't they big investors in Twitter's Musk's acquisition of Twitter? I don't know why I think that, but I vaguely remember that being the case.
I mean, the thing that I know them best for is WeWork.
Yeah. Well,
Which um,
which was
made a good docudrama. There was that.
Yeah, and their genius in bankrolling WeWork helped them get other deals, and it obviously temporarily influenced their balance sheet for the better, and they were kind of unstoppable again until it all blew up. And that's the problem. Volatile industries, by their very nature, blow up. So they were bullish to a fault.
So one more thing, this wasn't on the original rundown, but as I'm sitting here talking to you, it occurs to me that we would be remiss if we didn't talk about Paramount and the massive cuts at MTV and the shutting of MTV News, which maybe has not been wildly relevant for a little while in terms of how young people are getting information, but still is a sad, I don't think you make I think the decision you make if you're Paramount, which is, can we just keep trimming the sales till we get back to our fighting weight, or do we have to start shutting things down, including brands? And like those decisions can't have gotten made easily, and they're painful.
They are painful, but to me, I have to say, it's painful for me in the way that when a friend loses their 98-year-old grandmother. And it's, of course, a tragedy for them, but it had the ultimate grim inevitability to it. And MTV's market, wasn't, it had ceded through no fault of its own. The brand still means something, and it's an asset, so maybe, something good will happen there. But it's really not relevant as a media outlet anymore because of everything else that has come to the fore, including YouTube and Insta and TikTok in particular,
and Vivo, and
Vivo.
Yeah. That being said, I just to give it its proper due. So when I was 12 years old and had this idea that somehow we could take cameras and put them in the hands of young people and they would make their own news programming, the only people that took that meeting and took us seriously was MTV, and they took a huge risk and supported it generously. And MTV Unfiltered was, launched before YouTube, was 5 years before YouTube, and made some fantastic television, but also helped me shape what has become a big chunk of my career in terms of, listening to young people and giving them the tools to tell their stories. So
I always say, because you refuse to actually utter the sentence, that in many ways you were the inventor of consumer-generated content, and you were certainly the first person who institutionalized it. And MTV Unfiltered was entirely your creation, and began everything. It began everything. And you're the father of UGC, and no wonder you're sad that grandma has died.
So the Associated Press called me after we started running what was Viewers News on our regional news magazine before it became MTV Unfiltered. And they asked what the secret was. And I said, the secret is we answer the phone when it rings. And all other news organizations don't. Yeah. And, listening to your audience was not genius, but it went against some of what was then the authoritarian top down. We know what's important. We'll tell you the stories. You will sit obediently and consume the news as we feed it to you. And
As I argued to you at the time,
Yes.
in almost exactly those words. What the fuck are you doing, Steve? These people don't know how to create a storytell in video. What are you saying? What are you doing? We're professionals. We have judgment. Yeah, I might have been slightly wrong.
Yeah. Well, I mean, with one slight admission, the title Unfiltered, the show originally was called Interact and got re-titled internally. And I argued, not that passionately, but for a cycle or two, that Unfiltered was a little bit of a misnomer because, in fact, the content was filtered. I mean, we chose the stories and then we helped. Yeah. I mean, we were very careful to never put words in the mouths of the kids that were making stories for us. And in fact, if they didn't want the story to go in a certain direction, there was no amount of like, well, it would be better if you would have a different, I mean, it was never that, but it certainly was. If you watch the pieces, the spunk of them and the editing and the way music was used was very much MTV's style book. But the voices of those young people, I mean, to this day, I can tell you, I found the clip to our greatest hits, some of our great MTV Unfiltered stories, and they hold up. Alison Stewart as the host and Serena Alschel, when they hold up. Anyway, enough of that little brief RIP at the end. We are out of time. Let's see what Trump does with this little burst of enthusiasm that he's been able to wrangle out of CNN. Whether or not, now he's got to figure out what his next thing is. Right? Is he going to do a great big stadium show? I bet he is. I bet he'll go on tour.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, I'm not going to that. Have a good week.
You too, Steve.